So as you see here on the screen, my name is Samuel White. I am the Customer Success Lead Manager for InCred International Credential Evaluations. So I serve as the liaison for any questions that you may have with your institutional portals, questions you may have about student applications, and anything else that I can assist you with as it pertains to InCred processes or any other InCred needs. So today we're going to talk about just briefly kind of the different evaluation types that we offer, the pricing, and really focus on updated evaluations. Um, that is a new feature that we offered starting last October. And so that pricing we'll go over, we'll kind of discuss what those evaluation types look like comparative to the original evaluation types that we've had. So getting started here. Our evaluation options are the high school comparability, which is $75, and that's the most common evaluation type that we see with NJCAA institutions, specifically when it comes to eligibility, because students have to have graduated from high school. So we do see a fair amount of high school graduation comparability evaluations. The next step up would be a basic high school evaluation, which is $95. There is the option to do an update, which the update fee is $45. And then there's the course by course evaluation, which is $190 with an update fee of $80. We do offer optional add-ons for students. So there is expedited service, and that comes with a 2-day or 5-day option. For 2 days, that is $150. For 5 days, that is $75. And one thing to note with the service time frames, we are talking about business days. So that'd be 2 business days or 5 business days. And that time frame starts from the moment that we get all required documentation from a student. So if a student sets up an application and we find out that there's additional records that are needed, that time frame won't start until we get those additional records processed on the application. And then the other optional add-on that we have is certified copies. Certified copies are the option to include certified copies of the students' records that we evaluated. So the high school transcript or diploma that they provided us, we would certify that and include it with the evaluation so that you can have that on campus. Same goes for translations as well. Now, we do not offer translation services, but if a student were to provide us with certified translations, we would obviously include that with their certified copies. If the student did not provide certified translations, since we do not require them for evaluations, students can have a family member who's fluent in English do the translation for them, or someone at the university. We will not include those in the certified copies if it is not a certified translation that we received. So going a little bit more in detail with the evaluation types. So as I stated, the high school graduation comparability is $75 and it's recommended for incoming freshmen. The biggest thing to note with the high school graduation comparability is that there is no GPA that is generated. So if your admission standards require a student to have a high school GPA when they're going through the admissions process, you would want to shy away from the high school graduation comparability. While I understand that from an athletic eligibility standpoint, this is the best evaluation for them, you also have to keep in mind about your institution's admissions standards as well. Documents that are needed for high school graduation comparability, just what it sounds like, a final high school diploma or leaving certificate. One thing to note is that since this is confirmation of high school graduation, we cannot do an update to a high school graduation comparability evaluation. We will not start that evaluation process until we have the student's final high school diploma or leaving certificate. So I know that kind of can muddy the waters when it comes to like the visa process, because some students may not have that final documentation until June, maybe even July at the latest, which can kind of put them on a very tight timeline in terms of getting their visa and getting admitted into the institution. So that's one thing that you'll want to keep in mind, especially for those of you that are coaches. When you're recruiting students, finding out exactly when they're going to be graduating and determining, what that timeline is going to look like for them to get all of their admissions paperwork done. So the next kind of rung on the ladder is the basic high school evaluation, and that is $95. Again, this is recommended for incoming freshmen. It's essentially the same thing as the high school graduation comparability evaluation, except for it includes the GPA. So on the basic, that student would have a GPA generated on a US 4.0 scale based on their marks from their home country. When it comes to documentation needed, again, we would need the final high school diploma or leaving certificate, and then their final high school transcript. If they are coming from a country where the student takes a national exam in order to graduate high school, then we technically don't need school transcripts. We would need the exam results. So what comes to mind is in the UK, students take a national exam, the General Certificate of Secondary Education. And so instead of the student providing us with school transcripts, we would actually be receiving their examination certificate, which lists out the marks that they earned on that examination. And that is what we evaluate to determine their US GPA. And those are in subsequent webinars that we'll have. We'll be doing country spotlights where we go kind of more in depth on certain countries. And so little nuances like that we'll kind of highlight and go over more in detail. But just wanted to point that out with this particular evaluation type. And then the last evaluation type is the course by course. For those of you at the 2-year level, you're not going to see a lot of these course by course evaluations. Generally, this is used for students that have post-secondary enrollment in their home country. So you might see that with like a sophomore that's transferring that did their freshman year in their home country at a university. But sometimes you'll see it with students who are seeking advanced standing credit. So advanced standing credit is similar to like advanced placement credit here in the States. So if a student did do some additional coursework throughout their high school years and they're seeking those advanced standing credits to potentially transfer that in as college credit, then they would need to do a course by course evaluation. The main thing with the course by course is it delineates credit per course. So we would list out those courses, whether that is high school or post-secondary, and we would provide that on the evaluation itself. With documentation needed, again, it's that final high school or post-secondary diploma, which you probably are not going to see students that are matriculating to your institution that have bachelor's degrees from abroad. But if they earned a certificate or things of that nature, we would include that in the evaluation. And then as well as their final high school and post-secondary transcripts. So I'll just pause right there. Is there any questions about these evaluation types or anything that you've come across that you've wanted to ask about? And you can feel free to unmute yourself or send a chat. All right, then we'll move right along. So updated evaluation. So this is this is a new feature. Like I said, we just started doing updated evaluations in October. And so these are for students that have not completed their studies. So think about a student who needs to go through the admission process right now. And that's one of the, whoops, sorry about that. One of the reasons why we want to do this evaluation at this time of year is you have those students that are wanting to enroll for fall 2024, and they're trying to go through the admissions process right now. So they may not have graduated yet. They may not graduate until May or June, but we can do an in-progress evaluation based on the coursework that they've already completed. And so essentially, this is recommended for those student athletes that are seeking admissions and going through the visa process right now, with the knowledge that they'll need to provide their final credentials once they graduate later on this summer. We feel that it streamlines the process for these students to receive a final evaluation because when they pay for the update up front, all they have to do is provide us with their current transcripts. And then once they graduate, they just upload their final certificate or diploma and final transcript, and we will update that evaluation so that you have that final information for eligibility purposes or for admissions if you're going back and just double checking on what that final GPA may be. Um, Students only need to upload their final documents to their previous NCRED application, so they do not need to create a new application. We see this, we've started to see this a little bit where students feel like, oh, it's a new credential, it's a new document, I need to create a new application. That's the kind of the beauty of the update process, is that it doesn't require a new application. They just upload the new documentation to their current application, and we go through that review process all over again with that new information. If they are, strapped for cash, or, just financially, it's not the best time to pay upfront for the upgrade, that's okay. They can pay for a basic high school evaluation right now. We can do an in-progress evaluation for them. And then in the summer, once they graduate, they can then pay for the update at that time as well. Um, so kind of what that looks like with a basic, if they were going to pay up front for the upgrade or for the update, excuse me, that'd be $145. And that's just basically taking the $95 basic evaluation price and adding that $45 upgrade fee on there upfront, which gets you to that 140. So if they were to pay that all up front, they'd pay the 140. If they were going to wait until their final documents are available and pay at that time, it would just be an additional $45. So all in all, they're going to pay $140. It's just a matter of, do they want to pay that up front, or do they kind of want to break that up with a $95 payment up front and then a $45 payment later on once they have the final documentation. And same goes for the course by course. So that price is $190. When you add in the update fee, that takes it to $270. So if they pay that up front, it's going to be $270, or they can wait until their final documents are available and pay that as a one-time fee of $80 later on. We always encourage them to pay up front, because like I said, it just streamlines the process, because they're not having to make that additional payment, as well as soon as their documents our final documents are ready, they can just upload those to their NCRED applications, and that review process will start. So it really does streamline the process if they pay up front. But again, we are understanding that obviously financially it may not be in their best interest to pay up front, and that's really up to the student and yourselves. All right, so before I get into document verification again, just taking another pause to see if anybody has questions about the updated pricing or updated evaluations in general. All right, so document verification. This is something that we've gotten a lot of questions about. So we definitely wanted to touch base on this and kind of take you through what our process is. So in this day and age, a lot of international institutions and even American institutions are really switching to those digital documentation or digital documents. So digital transcripts, digital diplomas, things of that nature. And we're seeing a very large uptick in these types of documents that are being submitted to us. When it comes to digital documents, we cannot accept those directly from the student unless they have verifiable links. So when we say verifiable links, we're talking about the QR codes that allow us to go to either the institution's website or maybe a Ministry of Education or examination body website that allows us to verify that that is an authentic document that we're receiving from the student. Sometimes it comes in the form of actual verifiable link where they provide a code for us. So we go to that link, put in that code, and verify the document from there. If a student were to provide us with a digital document that doesn't have a verifiable link, that's when they'll get a notification asking them to either have the institution send us the document directly via email, or have the institution print out their digital document, stamp and sign it so that then the student can upload it. Because as you know, we do allow those students to upload their documentation to us for review. That's one of the things that's unique about our particular service. A lot of other credential evaluation services require that the documents come directly from the institution. But we feel that with these type of verification methods, there's really not a need for the document to come directly from the institution, provided that they meet these types of verifiable links. So just showing kind of some examples of documents that we accept and do not accept. So if a student were to upload a copy of their documents, it must be a copy of the original physical document. So on the left here, this is an Ontario student transcript. And as you can see, there's the watermarks, there's the coloration, which lets us know that this is the authentic Ministry of Education transcript for this, particular document. So if a student were to upload this to our portal for review, this would be okay, provided that there is obviously a signature on it. We would not take it without the signature or any of the other information that's needed. But this is just in terms of the aesthetics. What we're looking at is the watermarks. You can see kind of the Ontario watermark here in the back, as well as that coloration to know that this is an authentic copy of the transcript. And students can take pictures of their transcript or document, or they can scan and upload it. It's really up to the student, whatever's best for them. If they don't have access to a scanner, then we obviously encourage them to take a picture and upload the picture. On the right here is a copy of what that digital document would look like. So as you can see, this is very black and white. It's digitally created. And so if the student were to upload this themselves, we would not accept it. This is the type of document, because there are no verifiable links, in order to determine authenticity, we would actually have the student have the institution email this document to us directly. So whether that would be the Ministry of Education or the student's high school in Canada, in order for this to be accepted. So just looking at some other examples here. On the left, this is the physical document for a student from Quebec. And again, you're seeing the kind of intricate details of the watermarks on the backing here, as well as the coloration down below. And so this is the type of a document that if a student were to take a picture of it or scan and upload that to us, we would accept that, because this is the official document that they physically received. On the left is the same type of Quebec transcript, but it's the digital version. And so you can obviously tell a lot of white space here, not those intricate details of the water markings. And then down at the bottom here, you can see that those coloration is different than what the normal official document looks like. Even the embossing of the logo is different. And so that lets us know that this was a digitally created document, and this is something that the institution would need to send to us or the Ministry of Education. All right, and I do see a question here, and I will address that momentarily. So going kind of just deeper into the intricacies of the document, um, we're looking at the, again, this is just kind of a close-up of those water markings and the embossing of the logo, to let us know that this is an official document comparative to a digital document. Um, and so these are the things that we look for. So the question here was, can you provide more information about validation of official authentic documents? Do you validate in any ways besides aesthetics? So we have an extensive catalog of official documents that we have created. And so we're really comparing the documents that we received to the kind of samples in our catalog. If there is anything that looks off, so if there was anything, going back to this type of document that we got, and if, certain logos were out of place, if there were, it is kind of a lot of aesthetics that we're looking at on the document itself. We're looking to make sure that everything in terms of the language, in terms of the information provided, is in the correct place, in the correct format. We're looking and scrutinizing a lot of that. If anything is off, if anything, if we were to look at this, and normally we see the French information up here, or French title for the transcript listed. If that was off, to the left a little bit, or if the font was different, anything like that, then we would reach out directly to the institution. or have the student what we call direct verification. And so we would have the student reach out to the institution and provide that documentation to us directly. Um, Aside from verifiable links, things like QR codes and the links that I showed previously, there are not a lot of different methods to verify a document. Obviously, if you get it directly from the institution, that's going to be the best verification method per se, or if you're using a QR code or verifiable link. But we wanted to make this process easier for students, and we wanted to allow students that option to upload their documents. And so in terms of other validation methods aside from verifiable links or direct verification with an institution, the aesthetics is really what we're going off of. So Katie, I hope that answers your question. But please feel free to send more information, or if you'd like to chat offline about that in more detail, we can. So one of the things that I get questions about is students will upload electronic documents and they'll say, oh, there is a stamp and there is a signature on it. So you should be able to accept it, like things like that. So this was a document that we received where we had a translation and then we had the original language version. And when we received the translation, it had this stamp of the institution as well as a signature. And so this kind of goes back to that kind of the aesthetics and kind of scrutinizing what we're seeing on the document itself. When we got the original language version from the student, we noticed that the stamp on the original language version was a little bit faded, almost as if it was copied from the original stamp that we got here, which is the ink stamp and signature. We also noticed that the signature was within the same kind of layout within the stamp itself. So little things like when we're looking at this signature, naturally when someone is signing multiple documents, their signature is not going to show up in the exact same place, on both documents. So this was something that we requested direct verification of because we saw that, looking at this kind of C, I believe that's a C or L here with the period is it's literally in the same spot. So this stamp and signature was copied onto the original. Now that doesn't mean that the student did anything. That we're not saying that the student is fraudulently trying to submit documents. It could very well be that the institution, just in order to save time, copied and paste their document. Maybe this is an electronic uh, stamp signature that they have on file that they just paste onto transcripts, but it deserved a little bit more scrutiny because looking at the stamp itself, that obviously you can see the fringes of the stamp, which, pressing down on a paper, you can kind of see those different intricacies. And because it was so um, similar in terms of the placement, in terms of the even the fringes of the stamp itself. This was something that we sent back and requested direct verification for. So while we are looking at the aesthetics and we're scrutinizing signatures and stamps, it doesn't sound like, oh, like the best method. It is something that is very effective because we put so much emphasis on looking at those little intricate details. When we talk about documents like this, it's really hard to recreate or fake the official documents because of those watermarkings and things of that nature. And so that's why we fully believe and stand behind those kind of verification methods of looking at those various intricacies on the document themselves. Are we currently? So we are not. I just got another question here, and I'll just answer that quickly. We are not a member of NACES. So there are two kind of overseeing bodies of credential evaluation services. There is NACES, and then there's AICE, and we are an endorsed member of AICE. So NACES is something that a lot of people are familiar with. AICE was created to kind of provide standards across multiple credential evaluation services. So if NACES members, you can go to one of their members, and get an evaluation done, and that evaluation can be drastically different than another member of NACES that does the evaluation for you. Whereas with AICE, all of our members, companies kind of follow the same guidelines, and so there's not much variance or interpretation amongst credentials between those companies, and so that's why we are an AICE member. And I can go more in depth on that as well offline. Typical turnaround time on a basic evaluation. So standard service is 7 to 10 business days. If we get into the summertime, we could consider that our peak. Obviously, multiple students enrolling for that fall semester. The standard service time can get up to 15 business days, depending on what our work volume is. But generally, it's about 7 to 10 business days. And then we also have the expedited service options that I talked about earlier for 2 business days or 5 business days. So back to documents, if we do require direct verification or document verification, then we essentially need the institution to email us the documents directly. The email has to be a verifiable email address from the institution's website or their staff listing. So here in the States, that's pretty easy because most of our email addresses are listed on our, institution's website, company website. Abroad, it is a little difficult, especially when you're talking about like African nations, where they don't have that infrastructure built yet. So sometimes we're seeing Gmails or Yahoo email addresses. And in those particular situations, if the Gmail or Yahoo is listed on the school's, website, if we're able to find a school website, then that's okay. That's going to be considered a verifiable email address. But if we can't find a school website to verify that that's a Gmail for that, at that point, we would then request that the document be mailed to us in a school seal and stamped envelope to ensure that it is direct verification from that institution. Um, any institution sending us documentation should be emailing the InCred at NAIA.org email address. And they should include the student's name and application number in the subject line. Sometimes they don't have the application number, and that's okay. As long as they provide the student's name in that subject line, we can run a search to pull up that student's application and get it processed. Students cannot forward emails to us. So if we are asking for direct verification and the school were to email a transcript to the student, they cannot forward that email to us. That will not be accepted. The email has to come directly from the institution that issued the credential or document. The one caveat to that is if those of you that are registrars, if you were to get an email directly from an institution abroad with a student's document, and you are 100% certain and you verify that that is an email address that is listed with that particular institution and associated with that particular institution, sometimes we can allow an exception for the registrar to email us or forward that email that they received. It is in pretty rare cases, and it usually has to do with some institutions that internationally will not submit documents to us as a third-party company. They would only send it directly to a U.S. institution on the student's behalf. So in those type of situations, we can allow an exception where your registrar at your institution can send us an email. In the email, they just state, I did receive, this email from XYZ email address at XYZ institution. We did verify that it is an authentic email address and document, and please accept it on the student's behalf. So if you come across those situations or a student is telling you that their school will not send it to InCred directly, they'll only send it to their US institution, then just let us know and we can walk you through that exception process. Again, if we cannot find a staff member's email address, so if we get an email from someone claiming to be a counselor at an international high school, but we can't find like a staff listing with their email or their name listed anywhere on the school's website, then we will reach out to the main email or emails listed on the institution's website. So if we get something from, Jane Doe, the counselor at a high school in Europe, but we can't find Jane Doe on the school's website, then we'll reach out to whatever their main contact email address is, whether that's, info at European high school or contact us at European high school, whatever the case is, and we will seek to have that main email address provide verification of the person who sent us documentation. So any questions about that? I know I'm kind of flying through things, but that's kind of like the last bit of information I had to share. So any questions or anything that anybody has come across when using InCred that you wanted to discuss? We've had some good questions here with, are we NACE's members, the overall turnaround time. If there's any other questions that you all have or situations you dealt with, I would love to hear them and try to address those now. And you can feel free to unmute yourself or send it in the chat. All right, so we got a question here. Good question. What country would you say you receive more evaluation requests from? So honestly, the evaluations that we complete, most of our applicants are coming from Canada, and the various provinces there. Second to that, it is England, kind of the UK, so England, Wales, and Ireland, or Northern Ireland, I believe is UK. And then I believe Spain is the third largest country that we're receiving applicants from. Um, I was trying to pull some NJCAA numbers and kind of see where most of the NJCAA students are coming from. And I did see that Canada was following that same pattern, which makes sense. A lot of Canadian students cross the border to come to study here in the States. But I didn't get all that data pulled to see exactly what those top countries were. But I do know Canada is the most active with regards to receiving NCRED evaluations. And we'll be doing a country spotlight on Canada because they have multiple provinces. And so for example, in British Columbia, students have to get a Ministry of Education transcript. There is no school transcript versus Ontario. The school can issue out a transcript on Ministry of Education paper versus New Brunswick, where there is no Ministry of Education transcript, it is just a school issued transcript. So we'll go over those different nuances as well um, and talk about that. And we'll send out an email with the dates of those country spotlights so that those of you that are interested in a particular country can learn more based on what our interpretation of the country's educational system is. Any other questions people can think of? Oh, okay. Yep. So just a message about student athletes from Scotland, England, Chile, and Mexico. Um, I know that England will be one of the country spotlights. I don't believe we'll cover Chile and Mexico this year. Essentially, what we've done is we've looked at again what are the top applicant countries, and then we're just going down that list. So starting with Canada, moving on to the next country. And like I said, we'll send out an email with the list of those countries for this year. And then next year, we'll have a host of whole new countries based on what we're seeing this year, just to get that pertinent information out. But if you have questions specifically about a country, like Chile or Mexico, definitely feel free to email us if you'd like more information. We do have published standards that kind of go a little bit more in detail on over, I think it's roughly 100 countries. But we do have extensive knowledge of over 200 plus countries, so we can definitely get you some additional information if you just want that um, for your own purposes. All right. Well, if there are any other questions, we'll go ahead and end this meeting. Again, I apologize about the passcode issue. I've talked to my tech team and not particularly sure what happened, but definitely wanted to extend an apology because I know that obviously delayed things and probably led to less participation as people were trying to get in. And unfortunately, that passcode was not working to start. But I hope all of you have a great day. Again, my name is Samuel White, and so if you have any questions, please reach out to us at InCred at NAIA.org. Um, and we look forward to hearing from you. And those of you on the athletic side, I will be excited to see you all in April at the NJCAA convention. Thank you. Have a great day.